All right. Here we are. Here we are. Here we are with the official first live stream of the Have You Seen That with T YouTube channel. And yeah, let's get into it, man. I'm just so happy to finally be able to get this thing off the ground. I've been wanting to do a live stream for a very long time, and I'm just happy that I'm finally being able to get it done. I'm extremely under the weather right now, so if you can't tell, I'm a little nasally, uh, and I'm probably going to mute the mic quite a bit to cough on the microphone, drinking a lot of water. But I wanted to do this so bad. It's been something I've wanted to do for a very long time, and what better way than to end the year with a live stream? And is everybody able to hear me? Am I having any audio? I can't see any comments. Give me 1 second while I just check on if I'm actually here doing this thing. Okay, myself. Oh, that's what's up. That is what's up. All right. All right. Appreciate the message. I appreciate the message. You can hear me. And let's go ahead and let's get on with it, right? So the year 2023, here we are. It's coming to a close, and I don't know about you, but this year has gone by extremely fast. It seems as though just yesterday, I was kids were unwrapping last year's Christmas gifts, and hopefully everyone had a happy and safe holiday. I know I did. The kids were in high great spirits. Me and the wife under the weather quite a bit. We were down, down for the count for the last 2 days, but as long as they had a good time, it's all that really matters. I'm really happy that they had a great, year. We wrapped it up with a great Christmas. And we're bringing in 2024 right, started a new career, started a new job. And I'm really, really in a good place right now. And this is a great time to start doing some live streams, right? And, right now we're starting off small and hopefully, by the end of this next year, 2024, this will be an annual thing. We'll do big live streams, each week, each month at least. And just have a good time, come together, fellowship, and talk about what we love to talk about, and that's movies, right? So let's start 2023, right? And what I wanted to do, how I broke it down was just month by month. I didn't want to do a top 10 list because it's easy to do a top 10 list. Actually, this year was really hard to do a top 10 list because there were some really bad movies, but there were also some really good movies this year in the year 2023. And the first movie this year that jumped on the screen was Megan. Megan, I remember seeing that January 6th of this year. And I had so low expectations of this movie. I had such low expectations. I thought it was going to be a Child's Play ripoff, which it kind of was. But it was just so much fun. This movie it was everything that you wanted a horror movie to be, and then some. Of course, it wasn't perfect. It's a doll. It's like a doll that kind of looks lifelike, that looks really weird as you're looking at it on the screen. But it was just a fun movie. I had a lot of fun with the Megan movie. Um, and it kind of is going on to gain like a cult like status. Um, you know, Throughout the year, the more people watch it, once it hit streaming, a lot of people got a chance to watch it and they enjoy it. I think a lot of people have enjoyed the movie Megan. It made quite a bit of money at the theater, and it did really well. Moving on into January, more movies in January. We had Plane, which was one of the most underrated movies of the year. I thought Gerard Butler, Mike Coulter, I don't think people give this movie enough credit for how good it was. It really was a phenomenal movie. It was a straightforward action flick. And what I liked about Plane was the fact that it didn't try to do too much, right? Gerard Butler wasn't, playing Mike Bannon from the Olympus Has Fallen movie trilogy. He was playing like this just pilot who was just down on his luck, and his plane just so happened to get hijacked. And as the captain of that plane, he felt the need to, save his passengers, and that's what he did. Him and Mike Coulter fought off these Indonesian bad guys in some brutal fashions. What I loved about that movie was just the brutal kills. I mean, there were just some just gnarly kills inside of plane that just I don't think anyone saw this movie coming, and I'm glad I got a chance to watch it. I really am, and it was one of the movies that I enjoyed the most in January. Another movie that's kind of polarizing. A lot of people did not like House Party, the remake of House Party. I did like the remake of House Party. I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was very fun. I thought Kid Cudi came in there and tried to steal the whole movie. And I enjoyed it. I had a great time watching House Party. What I didn't like about House Party is I felt as though the movie was written by middle-aged guys, guys my age. I will be the first one to say I'm middle aged. Guys in their 40s who wrote this movie as if they were guys in their 20s. Like, and what I mean by that is one moment while I just cough for 1 second. What I mean by that is, there's these two young guys, not to be confused with Kid and Play. They were not those two characters. They weren't the same characters for the original House Party or their kids or anything like that. Um, you know, they were these young, I don't even know what they are called these days. I don't know if they're called Millennium, Gen Z, Gen whatever. Um, they were these young guys, right? But all of the music in the movie was just like middle-aged music. The last At the end, they needed an act to come save the house party, and Lil Wayne showed up. Now, Lil Wayne might be somewhat timeless. Oh no, I'm sorry, Juvenile showed up. It was Juvenile. It wasn't even Lil Wayne. Juvenile came and did back that ass up. Hey, what's going on? Jason Entertainment, man. It's going. It is going. This is my first live stream. Thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate it so much. Um, but yeah, I was talking about just kind of going through the year 2023. Um, I made a poll, and hold on 1 second. Let me go ahead and throw that up there. And I got you. Hey T, how's it going, man? For January, made a poll with Skidamarinks most voted for the best movie of January, and Megan came in second place. That is interesting. You say that. I was just going over how much I love Plane. I enjoyed Plane a lot. Like I haven't seen Skinamarink. I'll be the first one to admit that. Skinamarink I've heard was really good, but I heard a lot of people like there people who love it, and then there are people who hate it. So like you kind of gotta, you know, get it, get in where you fit in. And I'm not a big horror guy. So I could definitely see, from what I've heard, I could see how that would have won. I enjoyed Megan. I really did like Megan a lot when it comes to horror movies, especially opening up the year. Uh, Here we go. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. Uh, I appreciate you dropping in, Jason Entertainment. Um, see it here. See it. You didn't watch Plane. I I moving on. Yeah. Speaking of Missing, I enjoy Missing too. Missing was a movie that came out of nowhere. I didn't see Searching. I wanted to see Searching, but I never got a chance to check out Searching. Was on my radar, but I just never. I'm the person who I have to be in a mood to watch a movie. Like when it comes to thrillers, I have to be in a thriller mood. I have to be in a comedy mood. And like every time I wanted to watch Searching, I end up watching something else. I end up watching like an action movie or something like that. But Plane, if you're into action movies that just are brutal, you'll love Plane, right? You just take the simple premise of a plane going down somewhere and the captain trying to, save his passengers. And the captain just so happened to be Gerard Butler, and then he got Luke Cage with him. And those guys kick serious ass in Plane. Like there was some just gnarly kills in Plane. Definitely check out Plane. Yeah, you definitely should check that movie out when you get a chance to. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. I didn't get a chance to check out Sick, but I heard that was good. That was pretty good as well. But we'll move along to February. I don't want to stick too much on each month. Oh no, I'm sorry. I missed the whole last bit of January. Fear, terrible. Fear. I went into Fear thinking that that was going to be a good movie, and it just wasn't. I love the cast. It had a really great cast, but it just wasn't a good movie. Infinity Pool had moments of greatness. I felt like Infinity Pool could have been, and it probably will go on to be a cult classic. I haven't watched the uncut, version of Infinity Pool yet, but I really did enjoy Infinity Pool. And Shotgun Wedding, terrible. The Jennifer Lopez, Josh Duhamel movie. I tried my hardest to watch that without playing on my phone, and I couldn't get through it. I ended up playing a lot more Candy Crush than I wanted to, and yeah, it just was not a good time at the watching that at home. Luckily, I would definitely have not paid my money to go see Shotgun one in the theater. And to round out January, You People on Netflix. I absolutely loved You People. There are a lot of people who didn't like You People. I enjoyed Eddie Murphy, uh, you know, and I don't know why this guy's name is just completely eluding me right now. Hmm. So sorry about that. If you didn't catch the very beginning, I have a terrible cold, and I'm just trying to fight through it. And I just wanted to get this live stream up and running. So if you hear me muted, chances are I'm coughing on the microphone. And if you happen to look up and you don't see me on the screen, I might be blowing my nose. So there's that. But yeah, here we are. Back to January. I was just talking to recapping You People. And the Lauren London, and why can't I think of this kid's name? I don't understand why I'm not thinking of the curly haired guy from Superbad. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. And I'll think of it the second that I move on to February. But yeah, I enjoyed the movie. I thought Eddie Murphy kind of was back in his bag, in his comedy bag. I thought it was funny. Julia Louis Dreyfus was hilarious in this movie. Her and David Duchovny as the parents, they were really funny. Everyone in this movie was funny. You know, Kenya Barris kind of gets a bad rep. You kind of gotta be a Kenya Barris guy, I think, to like a lot of his stuff. He writes the same racial shtick all the time, but I just so happen to really love it. I enjoy his comedy. I enjoy his writing, and yeah, I really did like that. Hold on. Yo, you're saving me tonight, man. I appreciate you. I keep getting these message. I keep getting these messages, and instead of a message on YouTube, he's messaging me on Facebook messages, and I appreciate you, Malone. You my guy. I really do appreciate you for sticking with me. Jonah Hill, that is his name. I don't know why. I don't know why his name was eluding me, but Jonah Hill. Uh, but yeah, back to and now moving on to February. So we had the Knock at the Cabin. So a Knock at the Cabin that came out in M Night Shyamalan. I'll start by saying this: I am not an M Night Shyamalan fan. He has made some classic movies. Don't get me wrong, but for every one classic M Night Shyamalan movie he's made, he's probably made five terrible movies. He made The Sixth Sense, of course, which is a classic, right? I would never, uh, you know, deny The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, another classic. And then from there, Signs was okay. But yeah, like from there, then you got Split. I think Split was his last good movie. And then that was it. You had Split, and then so what M. Night Shyamalan does is he makes great trailers, right? He makes fantastic trailers. All of his movies have the best trailers you've ever seen, and then you go watch the movie, and then the movie is just utterly terrible. So I went into this movie thinking it was going to be utterly terrible. You got Dave Bautista in a very serious role, and yeah, The Knock at the Cabin was the complete opposite of what I thought it was gonna be. I did not think it was gonna be a good movie at all, and it was a great movie. I enjoyed it. M. Night Shyamalan did his usual, cameo in the movie, but everything about The Knock at the Cabin was really, really well made. It was a well-written story. I don't know if it was written I think it was taken from a book, and M. Night Shyamalan adapted it. Thank goodness he didn't write it himself, or it would be terrible. But yeah, M. Night Shyamalan made A Night at the Cabin, and it wasn't a terrible movie. Um, 80 for Brady, Magic Mike's Last Dance. February was really Marlowe, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. February was a terrible month for movies. And then we had Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which was another terrible movie. This was not a good month for movies. Usually around February 10th timeframe, they re-released Titanic for Valentine's Day. There was no really good romantic comedy this year that came in there and just did its thing. But Ant-Man and Wasp and Quantumania came in. And a lot of people are labeling this as one of the biggest disappointments of the year. And I won't say it was a disappointment for me because I had low expectations going into it. And let me just go ahead and take these things out of my ear while I'm talking, because I'm not talking to anybody. But yeah, like Ant-Man and the Wasp, I really came in with extremely low expectations, because I had this feeling that this wasn't going to be a really good movie, and it proved me right because while Kang, Jonathan Majors, was a phenomenal character, uh, the thought of Ant-Man washing Kang at the end of that movie, just made me upset. It really, really made me upset. I did not think in any stretch of the imagination that Kang should have lost to Ant-Man. I remember being in a theater. And there was a moment in time in the theater, in the movie, where I thought that Ant-Man was gonna die. There was a lot of rumors that Ant-Man was gonna die at the end of this movie, and there was a good spot for him to die. There was a spot where, in spoilers, if you haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, I'm sorry. But there was a point at the end of the movie where everybody left and Scott, let his family go off to safety, and it was just him to fight Kang. And right when that happened, I said, "Oh my gosh, Ant-Man is gonna die." And that would have been the best thing that happened to this movie. If Ant-Man would have died at the end of this movie, it would have gave the movie meaning. But no, Ant-Man ended up washing Kang, and he sends them into the microverse, and which really is a good thing because now we can really write Jonathan Majors out of the movie, out of the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, because of the fact that he got fired. But yeah, it was just a missed opportunity with Ant-Man. And moving along in February, I will not harp on that, and I will talk about the Jonathan Majors issues a little bit later. But moving on, Cocaine Bear, I had really high expectations for Cocaine Bear, and it really let me down. I expected this to be the funniest movie of the year. Excuse me. I expected Cocaine Bear to be the funniest movie of the year, and it just fell short. It took itself a tad bit too serious. It was wild, it was crazy, but it just wasn't over the top funny. If you're gonna do an inspired by true event story, which none of the events in the movie actually happened, then if you're gonna do that, then go all out. Like completely just go all out and yeah, go completely all out. And I'm just gonna check one more thing really quick to see. And I do apologize because for some reason it said that I was supposed to have two. Okay, yeah, one. That one isn't going on as well. Let me go ahead and just delete that one. I don't think anybody's waiting to see it. Okay, yeah, I guess that's just me waiting. Sorry about that. All right, moving right along. I just want to make sure someone wasn't in another stream instead of being here. Moving right along, Cocaine Bear, just not that great of a movie. And then we'll jump into March and we're just going to kind of speed through this. And once again, I do appreciate any and everyone for being here. And if you are watching this live stream after it's already streamed, we're just streaming the year 2023, the year in movies, and we're kind of going month by month. In March, really did bring the movies back, right? And they say January and February are graveyards for these movies, and they were right because February was a really bad month. But Creed 3 at the beginning of March, what a movie this was. And I'll go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. Geez, the elephant in the room is this cold that I have. Jesus. But anyways, right? Creed 3. So at the end of last year, I did on my podcast, the Have You Seen That with T podcast, I did a year-end review. And I did an upcoming movie release. I want to say the first week of January on the podcast, where I was talking about all of the movies that were coming up this year. And I want to say the title of that podcast was 2023, a major year, or something that it was a word play on Jonathan Major's name, or the year of Major, or whatever the case may be, because he had two huge movies coming out in the year 2023. And uh, geez, I'm telling you, when you catch a cold, you get. All right. No matter what happens, I'm gonna finish this daggone live stream. That is one thing that I'm gonna do. But we were talking about Jonathan Majors. And I remember at the very end of my podcast, I said, that's not what I said. But I said to myself, this is going to be the year Jonathan Majors, unless he screws it up. And then I immediately said to myself, why are you saying that out loud? Why are you putting that into the world? Let it be, and nothing's going to happen, right? I remember, and I took that out of the podcast. I took that whole thought out of the podcast because I didn't want to put it into the air. And of course, fast forward December 2023, and here we are. Jonathan Major's been let go by Disney, and there's no more Kang the Conqueror, and his career might be literally over, at least for now. America loves a comeback story, and hopefully he can move on because I mean, this guy's an awesome actor. He is an amazing actor, and he's just been phenomenal. He was phenomenal in Creed 3. He's been phenomenal in everything he's been in, and I hope he bounces back. Right, I really do. I don't want to talk, about the specifics of the case because I don't know enough about the case in order to really talk specifics. And he was found guilty on the charges that he was found guilty of, and we'll move on, right? And hopefully he can move on. And moving on to another shit show, Scream 6, right? Scream 6 opens up with the infamous Ghostface kill, which is very inventive. Um, Scream 6, excuse me. Scream 6 opened up with one of their most inventive kills. And then it all went downhill from there, right? So the movie was a good movie until the third act. I did not enjoy the reveal, the Ghostface reveal at the end of the movie. I saw that coming for some strange reason. Midway through the movie, I saw that whole scenario playing out. That was one of my theories. And I just so happened to be, I had about three theories going into the end of the movie. And that was the one that played out. And I was disappointed because it was just played so poorly. It was just poorly done, and I didn't enjoy the end of Scream 6. And yeah, it just so happened, you know, that now everyone is gone. Christopher Landon's gone, Melissa Barrera's gone, Jenny Ortega's gone, and now they're left to pick up the pieces on a franchise that really just got its life back, which is sad, right? Moving on into March, I didn't get a chance to see Champions. I tried my hardest to watch Champions like 3 times, and each time I just stopped because I didn't want to do it. It was a touchy subject matter, and I just didn't want to touch it. And 65, I heard it was terrible. I never really planned on seeing it. I don't like dinosaur movies after watching Jurassic World 3. Um, Yeah, I'm done with dinosaur movies. I heard that they're making another one. Don't want to watch it. 65. I heard it was terrible, so I didn't check that one out. Then we had John Wick Chapter 4. Now, it's really hard to talk about John Wick Chapter 4 without spoiling John Wick Chapter 4 because of the way it ended. And it's the end of the franchise, at least for right now. And what a way to go out. Because I remember they're just certain action movies where you feel like you're inside of the action and your heart is pounding to the point where at the end of the action scene you're sweating or you're breathing heavy. The scene where they're in like the Champs Elysees, I think is the Champs Elysees, and they're going around that circle and they're fighting in their cars and people are shooting and people are getting hit by cars and John Wick is like weaving through all of this stuff and his car have no doors on it. That was like one of the most intense scenes I think that I've ever seen. And then they raise the bar because then he goes into the top down devil's breath shotgun scene, which is perhaps the greatest action sequence that I've ever seen. He's going through the movie in like a first person slash, like, not a first person shooter, but like a top down video game shooter. And he's shooting them with this devil's breath, which is like shotgun shells that light on fire, which is like one of the greatest action sequences that I've ever seen. And then he falls out of a like from the third or fourth story of this house. And then he has to run up these set of steps that are probably like 5 to 10 stories long. And he has to fight bad guys going up these steps. Right. And this is all kind of the crescendo of the movie. But all of this happened in one day, right? This all happened within hours of each other, or at least in real, if it's in real time. This all happened in like a 30-minute span of him having to fight all of these things. And then, slight spoiler alert, he gets to the top of the stairs and then he meets this big guy and he kicks him in the chest and he knocks him all the way back down the stairs. And I was like, holy smokes. In the movie now, because John Wick is not going to make it back up these stairs. But then out of nowhere, the hero of this movie, Donnie Yen, showed up and they fought their way up the stairs. And then I won't spoil any more of the movie. But that just showed, I mean, John Wick 4 is an utter masterpiece of a movie. I love the hell out of John Wick 4. It is a perfect way to end a franchise, if that is the end of a franchise. And it's a perfect way to send off the character, how it did at the end of that movie. And then moving on into the last week of March, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves. If you haven't seen Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves, listen to the rest of this live stream and then go watch Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves. It's one of the most fun movies that you'll watch this year. It's just a good time. I went into this movie with such low expectations. It was ridiculous. Like, I went into this movie, I almost forced myself to go see this movie just to review it, just to bomb it. Like, that literally was my reason to go see the movie. I wanted to go see Dungeons and Dragons to bomb it and call Chris Pine the inferior Chris of all of the Chris's. And boy, was I wrong, because he knocked it out of the park. Michelle Rodriguez, Justice Smith, they were all fantastic in this movie. The villain, not so great, but the cast of characters, like the team of thieves, just really knocked it out of the park. It was a fantastic movie. I loved this. It's one of my biggest surprises of the year, which I'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, that closes out March. Trying to see if I watch. I didn't watch Spin and Goal. I wanted to check that out. I haven't watched 1001. I really wanted to see that. But once again, I feel like it's a movie that I have to be in the mood to watch. I could watch Tiana Taylor drink water and I'll be fine with that. But that movie itself, I heard it was kind of heavy. And I didn't want to check it out. And I definitely will check it out at some point in time. Gotta support us. I did watch Murder Mystery 2. I think yeah, that did come out. Um, at the end of March, and it wasn't as funny as the first one. It was just wild, it was wacky, and it was a movie. So let's move on to April, and let's see what we got in April. So Air, right? Can't tell I got on New York's Knicks. I wanted the first live stream to be a representation of my fandom of the New York Knicks. I love the New York Knicks. I grew up a Knicks fan, and yeah. So I went into Air wanting to hate this movie because, as a Knicks fan, I hate Michael Jordan. Like, I hate Michael Jordan with a passion, right? I'm one of the only few people in the world on the planet who does hate Michael Jordan, other than the rest of the Knicks fans or the rest of the Portland Trailblazer fans or the Seattle Supersonics fan. Those people that he ripped our hearts out, right? Michael Jordan ripped my heart out as a kid by beating my Knicks over and over and over again. But the Jordans were cool, right? I owned Jordans when I was a teenager, up until the point where I said, you know what? I can't support this guy who kills my team, right? So I stopped wearing Jordans. I didn't start wearing Patrick Ewings, though. Didn't do that. But I stopped wearing Jordans. I stopped endorsing Michael Jordan product. And I say all of that to say I loved Air, right? I went into Air with very low expectations, and it was a phenomenal movie. Matt Damon was great. Ben Affleck was great. I thought Chris Tucker was really good in that movie. The guy who played the agent was so fantastic. I can't, his name is escaping me right now as well. Can't think of his name. The guy who played the agent who cussed out Matt Damon for like 5 minutes straight. That was probably the funniest scene of any movie in 2023. Um, but then Queen Viola Davis, right? So I said at the beginning of the year that this year was going to be Jonathan Major's year, but I think cinematically, I think this year was Viola Davis's year because while she was supporting actress, while she was a supporting actress in a lot of these movies, she dominated the movies that she were in. Like in Air, every scene that she was in felt bigger than it should have felt. Right, every scene that Viola Davis was in when she was talking to Matt Damon in the backyard of her home. She kind of sent the father to go, fix his car while she talked business to Matt Damon. And I don't know if that's true how that went, but that is the story that she's the one who spoke to the agent to get him to sign with Nike. But every scene she was in, she just elevated the movie. It was something about her presence that just completely elevated this movie. Excuse me. Her rapport with Matt Damon was just second to none. Great movie. Air like I when I left that movie wanting to buy a pair of Jordans. I didn't do it though because I'm still a Knicks fan. All right, moving on. On a Ring and a Prayer, didn't watch it. Super Mario Brothers. The Super Mario Brothers movie made $1 billion. 1 billion. It made over $1 billion. No one saw that coming. I didn't see that coming. If you're old enough to remember the Super Mario Brothers from the 80s, that probably made negative $1 billion. It was a terrible movie. There's some people who liked it. I was not one of those people. But I definitely watched it. I watched it in the theater because I played Super Mario growing up. This game felt like playing Super Mario 64 or watching the someone play the game of Super Mario World or Super Mario 64, and it was perfect. Right there, for some reason, every movie this year seems to had to have some type of controversy surrounding it before it came out. There was controversy that they cast Chris Pratt to voice Mario, and he wasn't Italian, which is the silliest thing that I've ever heard. It's almost as silly as people upset that they cast a young black woman to play a mermaid, a fictional character. But there was like this huge, I guess backlash, and apparently Chris Pratt is a devout Christian, and there are people who are just like anti him because of his stance on abortion. I think it is. Um, hey, I don't know these people personally. I don't care to know these people personally. I just, as long as they're good people, don't do horrible things, horrific things, then I'll continue to support them at the movie theater. Right. And I supported this movie, Jack Black, Peaches, 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 one of the greatest song interludes in any movie ever. Just great, great time at the theater. I didn't take my kids to see it because for some reason I thought my kids would be scared of Bowser. But we did watch it when it dropped on Peacock, and they absolutely loved it. Like every scene that he was in, they loved. Like they loved Jack Black's voice when he sang Peaches. It's hilarious, right? They really enjoyed that movie. And my daughter wanted to play Mario on the Nintendo Switch after this, so it kind of got her into games a little. Uh, but moving on, didn't check out Paint. I tried to watch Paint. It was a movie that was on my radar, starring Owen Wilson as a guy who kind of looked like the guy with the fro. Why is everybody's name eluding me today? Um, but yeah, the guy who painted the trees. I thought it was like a biopic of his at first, but then when I found out it wasn't, I lost complete interest in the movie. Turns out the movie is about Owen Wilson, who's upset that another painter is painting on the public access channel now, and he's like a hipper painter. It's almost like Zoolander, but for painting. And from the scenes that I saw, it just wasn't that funny, so I just stopped watching it. Moving on to April 14th, we had Renfield, which was a very disappointing movie. I went into Renfield with high expectations. You think Nicolas Cage as Dracula? how can you go wrong? You add Aquafina and a lot of blood, like a lot of random bloodletting, and not like fun bloodletting. It was just like over the top blood, and you had Renfield, right? It became an action movie, and it should not have been an action movie. I feel like it should have stayed in the comedy realm, but it became like this very violent action movie, and not a good violent action movie. It felt like forced, and it just wasn't fun. I didn't enjoy the action scenes in this movie. I didn't enjoy Nicholas Hoult as like this somewhat action hero. It felt like a comic book movie, and it just wasn't a fun movie. I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. And let's see what else. I did try to watch Mama Mafia, and once again, that was a lot more violent than I thought. All right. Hey, how you doing? Screens and reviews. I appreciate it so much for you stopping by. You'll catch on a replay. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for stopping by. And yeah, definitely watch the replay and give feedback, on the movies that you enjoyed for the year 2023. I'll talk about my favorite movies of the year. I'll talk about my most surprising movies, and also talk about the biggest disappointments. So definitely throw those comments up on your biggest disappointments, your biggest surprises, and your favorite movies of 2023. So definitely thank you for stopping by. All right, so yeah, back to Mama Mafia. It was a lot of blood in Mama Mafia, and me and the wife, we were enjoying it. But it was too much blood, and my kids kept coming in the room, and we just never got back to it. Never got back to it. And yeah, one day I will finish Mama Mafia. I love, I want Nicole Colette, Tony Collette. There you go. I love Tony Collette. So I do want to finish that movie. It deserves to be finished. I don't think it was that bad. The kids just kind of were getting in the way of us enjoying a good old bloody movie. And then coming up to the end of April, Bo is Afraid. I never got a chance to see it. I wanted to watch that the other day, and then I saw the movie was 3 hours, and I just can't sit down and watch a 3 hour movie that is weird from what I hear, and not in an interesting way. So I didn't check that out. But one of my most surprising movies of the year, The Covenant. If you haven't watched The Covenant, Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, you definitely should check that out. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal as like a special forces operator who gets injured in the line of duty and gets saved by his interpreter. He got saved by his interpreter, and he gets saved. The interpreter go has to like carry him in a like push cart up and down the mountains of Afghanistan. And like the first 30 minutes of the movie is just him hustling and bustling through Afghanistan with this wounded soldier on the back of a push cart. He's dragging him up a mountain, and it kind of gives levity to all he had to go through. And then the second half of the movie is Jake Gyllenhaal trying to get this interpreter's him and his family out of Afghanistan because he becomes somewhat of a folk hero, and now all of the Taliban want to kill this guy. And I don't know if it's based on a true story. I don't think it is, but it is definitely the story of a lot of interpreters who do get harassed and killed back in their home country. I felt that in the story, having been a deployed soldier. But yeah, like it was a very strong, it was a dude movie, right? It ended on a very positive note. It hit all of the right beats, and it just had so much heart, so much soul in it. I enjoyed this movie so much. It is definitely in my top 10 movies of the year, and I in no way, shape, or fashion thought that it would be that high on my list. I went into it kind of with low expectations, and I left there with just extremely, extreme joy. So yeah, definitely the Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. If you haven't checked that out, you definitely want to check out that movie. It is for sure worth your time. If you like action movies, you don't have to like war movies. It's not a war movie per se. It's just a story about two, the brotherhood of being a squad, being a team, and it just you just felt it watching this movie. It's a great movie for definitely for young soldiers to watch as well. I also that same night I ended up going to see Evil Dead right after Evil Dead Rise, right after I saw that movie. Um, and it was a good thing I did because Evil Dead Rise was pretty creepy. There was a lot of blood in Evil Dead Rise. There was a lot of gore in Evil Dead Rise, and it was a good movie. It was one of the best horror movies of 2023. Give me one moment. I'm just going to drop my camera for 1 second to blow my nose because I can just feel that congestion going up there. And I do appreciate everyone listening. Please don't leave. Give me one moment. All right, and I'm back. There we go. We back live, man. And we're through April, and I need to make this quicker, man. I think we're almost at 50 minutes, and we're only at April. All right, but before I leave April, right? There's some stinkers at the end of April. I do want to talk about one of my underrated movies of April, and that's To Catch a Killer. To Catch a Killer, starring Shailene Woodley and Ben Mendelsohn. It's on Amazon Prime. I'm sorry, it's on Hulu. It's on Hulu now. It's definitely a movie you should watch. It's one of those intense crime thrillers. It's very slow paced, but it's really good. It's like really like you have to pay attention to a lot of the details. There are a lot of small details in this movie that if you're not paying attention, they'll be overlooked. But it's a really good movie. Shailene Woodley is in her bag in this movie. She's a great young actress, and she Ben Mendelsohn is always great. He's the guy from the Scroll leader from Captain Marvel. He was great in this movie. Everyone's great in this movie. It's about like a serial bomber in Boston who starts bombing on New Year's Day, and Ben Mendelsohn plays an FBI agent who enlists the aid of a cop in order to catch this guy. It's a crime thriller. It's just a really good movie. If you haven't got a chance to check it, it's a movie that no one, I've literally heard zero people talk about this movie. I did do a review. I dropped a review of the movie earlier this year. And yeah, like I didn't get too many views because nobody really heard of the movie. But I do think it is worth a watch. All right, moving on. We're gonna move out of April because the rest of the Black Demon is probably the worst movie of the year. If you had a chance to check that out, that's on Amazon Prime. It's about a killer shark and a family that's stuck on like a oil rig or something like that. Just terrible. And then moving into May, we'll jump into May with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, initially watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else did. I enjoyed the Rocket Raccoon story. I thought that was a great story. I thought that was a great character arc. And it just was so heartfelt. Like every scene with those animals, if you're an animal lover, which I won't say that I am, but if you're an animal lover, you definitely felt those scenes with Rocket Raccoon, right? Him becoming Rocket Raccoon, the high evolutionary testing him, doing all these tests on him to create the perfect being, which was kind of one of my gripes with the movie because it kind of didn't make any sense, but at the same time, I understood, right? After the second viewing, I kind of understood what was going on a little bit more. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, definitely the best superhero movie of 2023. But that's like such a low bar because there was such bad superhero movies that it wasn't hard to be number one, but this one smashed it way out of the park. Even after the first viewing, I thought it was the best movie of 2023. And we're going to move on to the worst movie of, or at least the best superhero movie of 2023. We'll move on to the worst movie of 2023, Hypnotic, starring Ben Affleck, written by Robert Rodriguez. Don't watch this movie. It was terrible. So, Hypnotic, Ben Affleck plays a cop whose daughter gets kidnapped, and he thinks he finds the guy, and comes to find out the guy is a hypnotic, right? He can control people through the power of suggestion. And then he finds another hypnotic, like psychic, who helps him find this guy. And then the movie just turns into a crazy mess. And I don't want to spoil it if you decide to watch this movie. The ending of it is so crazy and trippy, but all in a bad way, not in a fun way, not in an exciting way. It's just not a good movie at all. But Hypnotic, it happened. The Mother on Netflix, that was another movie that happened um, with Jennifer Lopez. I kind of went into that with low expectations. My wife loved it. I didn't like it so much. Let's see what other movies. Then we go into May 19th, Fast X. Boy, I tell you, where would you get without family? Family is the most important thing in the world, at least to Vin Diesel. In Fast X, uh, everybody comes back. Everybody Fast X might as well be the first Fast movie. It ends on this crazy cliffhanger, and yeah, like it was a movie that existed. And I'm a big fan of the Fast and the Furious movies. They've gotten ridiculous over the years, and I love all of the ridiculousness. Jason Momoa, top tier villain performance, complete top tier villain performance. Give me one moment. I need to. I'm like trying to fight this congestion in the worst way. Oh, I'm telling you, fighting this head cold is the absolute worst. Like, geez. But yeah, back to Jason Momoa, Fast X. Like he elevated that movie probably 5 tiers than it deserved to be. The ending cliffhanger scene that it ended on, terrible. And we'll talk about cliffhanger endings a little bit later. But this one was terrible because it just seemed utterly ridiculous how we got there. And yeah, there's that. And I can't move on past May without talking about White Man Can't Jump. White Man Can't Jump is a remake that aired on Hulu, and I reviewed White Man Can't Jump, and that was my biggest YouTube video that I've made so far. Like every other video gets, very low numbers, but for some reason, everybody jumped on that White Man Can't Jump review. And I made one statement about The Last Dragon, about remaking The Last Dragon in that review, and that's what everybody's stuck on. Like, it was like, "Don't remake the classics," and I said something I can't even remember what I said about The Last Dragon, but it was like everybody was like, "What are you talking about? Don't think about remaking The Last Dragon." They're all right. They're all correct, by the way. It was just a joke. Like, I don't want them I actually do want them to remake The Last Dragon, because if you actually go back and watch The Last Dragon, it's a pretty awful movie, like, as an adult, but as a kid, I loved it, right? Bruce Leroy, hey, but moving on to White Man Can't Jump. I actually enjoyed White Man Can't Jump. I had a good time with White Man Can't Jump. It was funny. Vince Staples was hilarious in this movie. Jack Harlow was really funny. Cinqua Walls was like they all played off each other really well. It wasn't Woody and Wesley, but at the same time, it was a very different dynamic. It also felt it also felt like a middle-aged man wrote this movie that are starring young people. And that's something that I noticed with a lot of movies. Some of the dialogue in these movies, like you could tell an older person wrote these lines, but you have a young person saying them, which is always a little bit off-putting, but at the same time, I understand, right? Not too many 20 somethings are pitching movies and selling movies to studios, or they're not the screenwriters that these studios go to in order to get these movies made. So I get it. But yeah, there's something I noticed. Just some of the music choices too. You could just tell an older person, produced this movie, or at least the older music. That's the only music they could license for the movies. I don't know. Maybe that's it. But moving on to the end of May, The Little Mermaid. I'm just gonna say this. I'm happy this movie was made. Um, because my daughter, young black girl, got to see a black mermaid. My daughter, once again, young black girl. I remember when she was about 2 or 3, she went into a toy store and she was looking at dolls, right? She's looking at all these dolls on the shelves, and she pointed at one doll, and I said, "Hey, why do you want that doll?" She said, "Because that doll looks like me." Right? And that, like, people can harp on diversity all they want. They can, "Oh, Hollywood is woke." They can say all of these crazy things, right? But I don't care. I love that my daughter gets to see people who look like her on the big screen, right? So she can think that or she can know, I'm sorry, so she can know that she's a princess too, or she can be a queen, like Shuri from the Black Panther. Like, she can be all of those things. So her seeing The Little Mermaid, I took her to see The Little Mermaid. What I will say, The Little Mermaid was too long. The original Little Mermaid, I think, was like a hour and 28 minutes. This movie was over 2 hours. It was like an additional 40 plus minutes of Little Mermaid that I didn't need. I was fighting sleep in the movie theater. The kids were loving it. The kids loved the songs, the Kiss the Girl song, great songs, right? But at the same time, that movie is too long for the young kids that it's pushed for. My son, who's 5, he could not sit down for 2.5 hours, so it was a struggle. But I'm glad that they made that movie. Moving on, and I would love to stop and talk about You Hurt My Feelings, but I'm gonna do that in another video because You Hurt My Feelings might be one of the best comedies of 2023. All right, well, we're gonna move on to June. And now we're going into the summers. We're going into the summertime. And we're just gonna go over a few highlights in June. We don't want to talk about the Boogeyman. Didn't watch that movie at all. But Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, um, one of the greatest animated movies to ever be made. That I will say. Definitely a great movie. This movie also ended on a cliffhanger, much like Fast X, but done a lot better. Now, I've heard a lot of people went to the movie theaters and they were very upset at how that movie ended because it ended on a cliffhanger. But at the same time, if you knew that it was part one of two movies, then you should have known it was going to end on a cliffhanger. This movie ended on way better of a cliffhanger than Fast X. And it just works so well. The dynamic of the family, Miles, Gwen, it just all worked really well. And if you just popped in on the video stream, I got a bit of a cold. So if you hear me muted or if you see me drop my camera, it's probably because I'm blowing my nose. I'm super congested, but I wanted to get out this first live stream, and we're halfway through the year. We're in June. We're gonna pick it up a little bit. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to talk about Across the Spider Verse, one of the best movies of the year. It's definitely in my top 10. It's in my top five of best movies in 2023. Yeah, and then going on to The Blackening, right? We'll skip over Transformer Rise of the Beast. Terrible movie. Another Transformers movie, loud noises, robots transforming, big battle at the end. We've seen one, we've seen them all. And me growing up watching Transformers the animated movie and seeing Unicron on the big screen, I thought I would have a lot more feelings, but I didn't. It just didn't hit with me. But The Blackening did, one of the funniest movies of the year. If you haven't seen The Blackening, if you haven't seen The Blackening, it's streaming on Stars now. I just watched it again 2 nights ago, and it's such a funny movie, and it's so well written because, like, with a lot of other movies, the dialogue seems so off, right? There are a lot of times, especially movies starring black characters in Hollywood, a lot of the times there are white writers on those movies, right? So this movie felt like it was written by a black writer. It felt like it was written by a black writer of the same age of the characters. You know, they had a college reunion. I think it was like a 10-year college reunion. So they're in their like late 20s, early 30s, maybe. And it just seemed right. And it's hilarious, right? It's such a funny movie. There's one scene in particular in which, slight spoiler, right? So one of the killers had one of the characters tries to swim away. And it's like she's a heavier set character and she's trying to swim away. And in order to help her get away, her friend who is hiding in the trees jumps down and tries to fight one of the killers. And the funniest scene of the movie is the guy like swings at him a few times, and the black character says, "Oh, you can't fight." And I don't know what it was. It was the way he said it and the way he whipped this dude's ass that I laughed so hard because it was like, that's definitely like, oh snap, this motherfucker can't fight. Like, and I felt that line, I felt that scene because it was hilarious. Like this guy could not fight at all. Like he was just this big lumbering guy, and this dude, like, unlike takes Manhattan, this character just beat the shit out of him and end up killing him. Great scene, great movie. The Blackening, if you haven't watched it, definitely check that movie out. The Flash, don't check that movie out. Bad CGI. Ezra Miller's in it, just not a good movie. There are a lot of people who liked it. It wasn't a terrible movie, it just wasn't a good movie, right? You have Michael Keaton coming back as Batman, and it just fell flat. It just did not feel good at all. The Supergirl, Sasha Calais, playing Supergirl, it just didn't feel right as a movie. It was poorly written. The ending, it was like they made the movie and then realized towards the end that they didn't have a good way to end the movie. So they ended it in the craziest, most insane cameo filled way, and it just was wrong. It just came out bad. Wasn't a good movie at all. But what was a good movie was No Hard Feelings. Jennifer Lawrence plays a young slacker who is not doing too well for herself. And she gets hired by some helicopter parents to date their teenage son who's 19. They made sure to let us know he was 19, right? So we can know he's legal because Jennifer Lawrence is in her 30s, right? So we don't want to, do too much there. But Jennifer Lawrence uh, coaches this young man up to become a man in this coming of age romantic comedy. And it's really funny. It's a really funny, there's the infamous beach scene in which spoilers galore, uh, where Jennifer Lawrence fights off these teenagers butt naked. Everything's hanging out. And she beats the crap out of these teenagers completely naked. The whole theater was just like gasping. Everybody felt awkward because of the fight scene. It was a very awkward fight scene, but it worked really well in the movie. So No Hard Feelings, if you haven't checked that out, I think it's on Netflix now, if I'm not mistaken. I do think it is on Netflix, so you should definitely check that out. The young actor in the movie is very awkward. It kind of remind me. I said this before. He reminded me of a budding serial killer. He was so awkward, so off-putting. But yeah, No Hard Feelings. Definitely check that out if you haven't. Moving on to the end of June, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, one of the worst movies that they could have made. If you're a fan of Indiana Jones, I'm sorry. I've never been that big of a fan of Indiana Jones. I love The Last Crusade with Sean Connery, but the rest of them are kind of interchangeable to me. But The Dial of Destiny was just a bad movie. It was poorly directed. It was poorly written. The ending of it was just ridiculous. Mads Mikkelsen is always awesome. He's always great. So you got what you got from him. But everything else, I didn't want to see a 90-year-old Harrison Ford running around trying to be Indiana Jones anymore. So that just kind of threw me off. And then everything else, the Phoebe Waller Coates, I think that's her name. Her character was so terrible. Like you couldn't root for her even if you wanted to because her character was just insufferable. She was just a terrible person. She was a terrible character where you didn't want to see her make it through the movie. Like I wanted to see her end up going out at the very end of the movie, but yeah, it was just not a good movie at all. So we're gonna move on to July. Joyride, one of the funniest comedies of the year. I Joyride, if you a lot of people haven't seen it, that one is also streaming on Stars. The good thing about this year in review is that a lot of these movies are already streaming, right? So if you haven't seen them, you definitely want to check some of these movies out. And Joyride is definitely one of them. It's a raunchy comedy. It's like Girls Trip with an Asian cast. These characters go to uh, okay, I don't throwing these ads at the bottom of the page now. But yeah, like these characters, one of the characters are looking for her long lost mom in Japan, I think it was. Uh, and yeah, it was funny. It is a funny movie. There's a lot of drugs being done in this movie. There's this infamous like K-pop scene, which is funny for all of the right reasons. And the ending of it, I will say, the ending of this movie made me cry. I'll be the first to admit I was in the theater. It's that touching. You have to watch the movie. If you've seen the movie, you know what scene I'm talking about. But it is a extremely heartfelt scene at the very end of this movie, which came out of left field because of how slapstick the movie was before that. And it just, I mean, it pulled at every single heartstring that I've ever had. And it definitely is a great movie to watch and a great movie to check out. Then we got Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I'm not exactly sure why a lot of people didn't like this movie. I thought it was one of the best Mission Impossible movies. It hits the same formula, but for some reason, a lot of people didn't go check it out. It made probably the lowest amount of money, I think, since Mission Impossible 3. It definitely it did not make as much as they thought it was going to make, but I enjoyed it. Right, I'm looking forward to part two. Esau Morales is a complete badass. If you old enough to remember La Bamba, Richie's brother, um, definitely one of my favorite movies. And Esau, to see him 20 plus years later playing the main bad guy in the Mission Impossible Tom Cruise film is a big deal. And he was awesome in that movie. And I thought the movie was great. Tom Cruise jumping off of high things, doing his own stunts, insanity, right? But that's what he likes to do. So I can't wait for part two to that to come out. And give me 1 second. And I'm kind of trying to breeze through all of this stuff now. And I do appreciate everyone who's here on the live stream. We're in July right now. We just spoke about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Um, Barbie, right? So I'm gonna say this now. Barbie is my favorite movie of 2023. And there's one particular reason in which it's my favorite movie of 2023 is because I got a chance to take my young daughter to see this movie. She, of course, plays with Barbies, right? And she went to this movie, and this is one of the greatest theater experiences I've ever had. Is other than Endgame, of course, which is a bro movie, it's a dude movie, but we went and saw Barbie, I think it was a matinee or something like that on a Saturday morning. And there was so many moms and sisters and I think I was one of the only guys there. I know I was in line to watch the Barbie movie and I didn't get the memo to wear pink, but my daughter was wearing pink. And the guy, was standing next to me in line. He was like, "Oh, you're here to see Barbie." And at first I felt offended, right? But I was with my small daughter, so it makes sense. Um, but yeah, like it was a great experience and she loved the movie. There were parts of the movie where I just would look over to her and I would see her eyes just glowing because she was seeing Barbie on a big screen, right? And it meant a lot to her. We've watched the movie probably 3 or 4 times already since it's come out on Max. She loves the movie. The songs, the soundtrack is like the soundtrack is a banger, right? All of the songs on the soundtrack is awesome, right? Even the Lizzo one, right? Uh, but that's perhaps the reason it's number one on my list of 2023 movies because of that movie experience. Plus, it was a good movie. It really like the fact that they did what they did with a movie about Barbie says so much. Like it should not have worked. It there's no reason the Barbie movie should have ever worked, but it did. It worked so well, and it was such a good movie. So I definitely enjoyed the Barbie movie. Um, didn't get a chance to see Oppenheimer. I'm not a big fan of historical uh biographies. I'm sorry, just biographies. Biographies. I'm not a big fan, especially the story of the A bomb. Never really like not my bag. And it's 3 hours long. It's over 3 hours long. No, thank you. There are a lot of people who says Oppenheimer is like their top movie of the year. Good for you. I'm really happy that you enjoyed the movie, but it just wasn't for me. Funny story. I did go see Haunted Mansion in the theater. I was falling asleep halfway through the movie. Like I was fighting sleep throughout that movie, which is saying a lot for the movie because it was a matinee. And then the power went out. I want to say maybe an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, or maybe an hour into the movie, the power went out in the movie theater. And they say, "Hey, we'll reimburse you. You can come back and watch the movie." And I just never went back and watched the movie. The movie's out on Disney Plus. I've never gone back and watched it on Disney Plus. It bored me while I was in the theater, so I just kind of let it go. I didn't go see Talk to Me because I was scared. I'll just throw that out there. Terrified of this movie. I'm not a big fan of movies about the occult and possession movies and stuff like that. Not a big fan. I've heard that this is the scariest movie of the year, this and When Evil Lurks. I've heard that those two movies are the scariest movies of this year, and I'm not going to see either one of those movies. So moving on. Let's see if there's anything else that I missed in July. Oh my God. It's in small print here. I can't move on from July without talking about They Clone Tyrone. And if you can see my mouse, I don't know if you can see my mouse. There we go. Right. You see how it's in small print here, right? Small print for They Clone Tyrone. That's the marketing for this movie, right? They didn't market Netflix very rarely markets any of their movies unless it's one of the huge movies, unless it's Red Notice or Heart of Stone with Gal Gadot, which is one of the worst movies of the year. But they didn't market They Clone Tyrone. And they should have, because They Clone Tyrone is in my top 5 movies of the year. If you have not gone to Netflix and watched They Clone Tyrone, you are doing yourself a disservice. It is such a funny, witty, well acted, well written, well directed movie. It is everything you want in a movie, everything you want in a sci-fi movie, everything you want in a comedy movie, everything you want in a black exploitation movie, which is kind of where it gets its heart from. It's all of those things and then some. They Clone Tyrone is quite literally possibly the perfect movie, close to perfect. All right. There's a few missteps here and there, but it's really hard to notice. Unless you're really paying attention and you want to find fault in the movie, you're gonna find the faults in the movie. But this is a great movie. I love They Clone Tyrone. Definitely one of my top movies of 2023. Definitely worth your time. We're moving on to August. All right, we got Meg 3 or Meg 2, The Trench. Didn't watch it. My wife watched it. She loves shark movies for some strange reason. Uh, didn't watch it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I did check that out in the theater. The only good thing I would say about this movie is, or the only good things I will say about the movie is the turtles sounded young. I enjoyed that about it. They seemed like actual teenagers, like young teenagers, 14, 15. And Ice Cube. Ice Cube was fantastic in this movie. Give me 1 second while I decongest my congested nose. And I'm back. Here we go. All right, man. I'm telling you, fighting off the elements is no joke. But yeah, Ice Cube, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Not a great movie, but not a terrible movie by any stretch of the imagination. It was a very fun Ninja Turtles movie. And yeah, Oc- it, August. We're still in August. I'm sorry. And then we got Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle, a superhero movie that happened. The end. It wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a great movie. The family dynamic. I love what they did with Miss Marvel, the MCU TV show, and Blue Beetle when it came to their family being part of the main story, right? Because the family really brought a lot of heart into the story. with Blue Beetle. The family brought a lot of heart into the story with Captain Mar or Miss Marvel, and later on in the Marvels. But yeah, Blue Beetle wasn't as terrible as everyone made it out to be. It just wasn't that great of a movie. It had a lot of flaws. I think that everybody jumped off that sinking DC ship, and they just put out whatever they felt like putting out to end the DCU as we knew. And then we had Strays, right? Strays came out. Will Ferrell, Jamie Foxx voicing dogs. Will Arnett, not Will Arnett, Will Forte, as the owner of this dog, and hilarity ensues. Strays is on Peacock. It's a very funny movie. You should definitely check that out if you haven't watched it. But we're gonna move on to perhaps one of the most surprising movies on everybody's list, Gran Turismo. Right. So I heard that they were making a Gran Turismo movie last year. And my first thought was, why? Why are you making a Gran Turismo movie? Who's going to watch a Gran Turismo movie? And why is Neil Blomkamp directing a Gran Turismo movie? Are there going to be aliens who drop in and like race cars? Just didn't make any sense to me. I thought it was going to be like another speed racer type movie. And what we got was actually a true story about Jan Mardenborough from the UK, who played the Gran Turismo game. He's one of the best Gran Turismo players on a PS3 game. And they had a contest, which I never knew anything about. Not saying I would have entered it because I'm a terrible Gran Turismo player. But he entered this contest and he actually became a F1 driver or not exactly sure what racing brand it is, but he became a professional driver after playing a Gran Turismo movie, and this movie is his story. And it is a great story. One of my favorite sports movies of all time is Rudy. Uh, and this movie kind of hit all of those same beats, right? Like a Rocky type story of this underdog who should not be there, who gets his shot and he knocks it out of the park. All with some of the greatest visuals you will ever see in a car racing movie. Like Fast and the Furious should take notes on some of these car scenes, how they did it. I don't know if there were practical effects. I don't know if there were a lot of special effects added in, but the crashes are graphic. The crashes are great. The act like the sports, the racing aspect of the movie doesn't take a backseat to the actual drama. And Diamond Hands, who plays his dad in the movie, which I think really pulls the movie together. You have this failed footballer. He's a soccer player for the American folks watching this. Uh, who didn't live out his dreams, and he kind of is holding his son back from living out his dreams, even though it's a very far-fetched dream. He wanted him to live in reality, and that's the hardest thing as a parent to understand. What's too far, right? Like, is there a bridge too far? Should you ever limit your kids from doing what they feel in their hearts that they're meant to do? And him, his father, those scenes were really tough because as a dad, I understand, right? You want your kid to be successful in whatever he does, but like, I don't want my kid to think that being a rapper is the only thing he can be. Like, because it's tough to make money in that industry and support your family and provide for your family. And Diamond Hansu really, really uh hit those notes, and he hit all of that, a lot, very hard. All right. Wait a second. We get Jay Poland. Thank you so much for dropping in. I just saw your comment. I, you're right. You're right. It wasn't a great movie, but it wasn't the worst movie of the year. I could think of a superhero movie that just came out last week that wasn't as good. No, I take that back. Aquaman was just as good, if not better, than Blue Beetle. But I'm gonna move on. But I appreciate you stopping in the live stream. Thank you so much, J. Poland, one of my best friends, one of my battle buddies. Uh, I really appreciate you stopping in, man. And I'm trying to breeze through this because there are some like I've been going at this for an hour 24 minutes. And if you can't hear, I'm so congested right now. It's ridiculous. So if you hear me mute my mic, it's to cough. I don't want to cough in your ear. I've already coughed in a few people's ear already. All right, but I'm done gushing over Gran Turismo. I'll briefly talk about Bottoms. Everybody has Bottoms as like one of their best comedies of the year. It was funny. Marshawn Lynch is hilarious in this movie. Like Marshawn Lynch makes this movie 10 times funnier than it has any right to be, but I just didn't find, Bottoms as funny as everyone else did. It was a funny movie. Don't get me wrong, but I just didn't find it as hilarious as everyone else did. There's a lot of people who swear by Bottoms and thinks it's the funniest movie of the year. I simply did not. So we're jumping into September and we're getting into the final few months of the year. Um, we want to talk about horror movies, right? And I said this in my review. Equalizer 3 might be the scariest movie of the year because of what Denzel did to all of those bad guys in the Equalizer 3. If you've not seen this movie, it's not for the weak stomached, right? He did some brutal things to these people in these movies that, like, everyone called John Wick the Baba Yaga, like the boogeyman. Scott McCall or Matt McCall, whatever McCall, that's all I remember. I don't remember his first name. But Denzel Washington, the Equalizer 3, he is the boogeyman. He would creep up because he's old, right? You could tell he's older. He's up there in age. And the way he walked in this movie was like that of a horror villain. Like he was just scary. He was terrifying. And he killed a lot of bad people in this movie. A good movie, not a great movie, but it was a really good movie. One of my favorites in the Equalizer series. Um, but it was a horror movie. I don't care what anybody says. That movie was just gory and bloody for no good reason. What was not bloody and gory for no good reason was The Nun 2. I didn't watch The Nun 2, but I heard it was terrible. So I'm glad I missed out on that. A Haunting Venice. I'm a big fan of the Hercule Poirot, and my wife laughs at me every time I try to pronounce that name. I'm a big fan of that series. I enjoy Murder in the Orient and The Death on the Nile. I didn't enjoy this one. It tried to be a horror movie, I guess for the Halloween audience, but it just ended up not being a good movie. It didn't do anything particularly well. It wasn't witty, it wasn't smart, it wasn't scary. It just was a bad detective movie. It was not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. Moving right along, let's see if I missed anything. I tried my hardest to watch The Outlaw Johnny Black. I tried about 3 times, could not get through the first 15 minutes. It is not Black Dynamite Part 2, if that's what you're looking for, because that's what I was looking for, and it was not that. So, yeah, big miss on that one. Expendables 4, I tried to watch that. I didn't go to the theater to see Expendables 4. I tried to watch that at home. I got through about 20 minutes, turned it off, could not do it. It was terrible. I mean, completely terrible. Let's see what else we got in September. All right. So, my most anticipated movie of 2023 was The Creator. I'd heard about the movie early in the year, and I was really excited because John David Washington, after Tenet, I love Tenet, by the way. Um, the premise of this, the premise of the movie brought me in. Uh, excuse me. The trailer of the movie brought me in, and then the movie took me out. Right, visually, The Creator, amazing. Right, visually, what they did with that budget is remarkable. $80 million budget, probably 20 of that you're spending on the cast itself, probably 20 of that you're spending on marketing. So to do that with the budget that they had, amazing, right? But what I was going into it for, I wasn't going in for the flashy visuals. I was going in for the story. And that's what took me out of the movie. I didn't enjoy the story as much as I would have liked to. I thought the story was kind of nonsensical, how they written it. I guess I've watched too much Terminator 2 to believe that the humans are just going to overpower AI the way they did. AI felt like a third world, third world nation or third, uh, like a third world. It was everything about this movie felt wrong. It just took me out of it. I didn't enjoy the creator as much as I wanted to. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But I did enjoy Saw X, right? I enjoyed the Saw series ever since the first one. And Saw X was phenomenal, right? Saw X was an amazing movie. And what Saw X did is it went back to the essence of John Kramer. And I think that's where its strength lied, because John Kramer is a horror character that we've all come to know and love and loathe at the same time. And the fact that they brought him back for this, that to me is always going to be one of the worst movie decisions ever, was killing him in Saw 3. But bringing him back for Saw X, it was a great story. Not a perfect story, but it was a great story, bringing us into the heart of Jigsaw, bringing Amanda back, even though they both looked, you know, 10, 15 years older than they did in the original two movies. But good movie. I enjoyed that movie a lot. And yeah, definitely if you haven't checked out Saw X, I don't think it's out on any streaming service just yet. But it should be coming fairly soon should be coming fairly soon. All right, we're gonna move on to October. In October, I think was a very slow month. We had Exorcist. Believer, didn't check that out. Not a big fan of possession films. A lot of video on demand stuff in October because, of course, Halloween's coming up. Got to throw those Halloween movies out there. Um, Fair Play. Fair Play went under a lot of people's radar. That came out on Netflix. That was a really good movie. About couple on Wall Street. The ending of the movie was pretty out there, but it was a slow burn of a movie, and it kind of crescendoed in insanity. Yeah, think of like Wall Street meets Fatal Attraction meets A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. That is Fair Play. Really good movie on Netflix though. I didn't go see Killers of the Flower Moon. I was hoping that it came out on Apple Plus. It is now available to rent on Apple Plus, but it is over 3 hours of a movie, and I can't see myself sitting down. I am gonna sit down and spend about 3 days trying to watch this movie. I've heard it's really good. I don't subscribe to I'm a huge Martin Scorsese fan. I'm not a big Martin Scorsese fan. I understand what he's done in film, but he's just not my favorite director. So going to see this 3 hour long movie was never going to be high on my list. So I'll get to it when I get to it. Let's see, what else do we have for the month of October? Freelance. I did go see that in the theater. It had John Cena and Allison Brie. I will literally watch anything that Allison Brie is in. I'm a big fan. I love John Cena. I'm a big wrestling fan. You know. So I definitely went and checked out Freelance. It was an action movie that was made. Not great, not terrible, but it was definitely an action movie that was made. Five Nights at Freddy. Okay, I'm old. I am older. I'm in my 40s. I've never like this came out. This whole Five Nights at Freddy things is after my time. So I didn't get it. I walked into Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh, I'm sorry. I watched it on Peacock. And that was the worst movie that I've ever seen. There are people who love that movie. There are teenage kids who love that movie. There are adults who love the movie because they played the games, and everybody who said they played the games, they said they loved the movie because it's just like the games. So I guess I had to play the games to appreciate the movie, but I don't think I want to play the games with how bad the movie was. So there's that. Five Nights at Freddy's, one of the worst movies that I think I've ever seen because it just literally made no sense, right? And I'm just gonna one thing about Five Nights at Freddy's. Let's think about this for a second. A guy gets hired to be a security guard for an abandoned restaurant or abandoned kids place. He's the night guard. Who's the day guard? Why is there no day guard? Is that ever talked about in the games? Did they even talk about that in the movie? I don't know. Like, why would there only be a night guard? What happens during the day? Does oh well, nobody's gonna come steal anything during the day, so let's just leave it the way it is. Like it just made no sense, right? Literally made no sense. But yeah, that was Five Nights at Freddy's. That was my biggest gripe with the movie. It's just dumb. It was and the ending of it, everybody knew who the killer was. Yeah, let's move on to November. And give me 1 second before we move on to November. The congestion, I swear to you. I'm gonna get better, guys. The next one is gonna be 20 times better than this. All right, and I am back. Back with November. Here we are. Yeah, this is another. I don't think I did any movie reviews in the month of November. I really do think I missed a lot of these movies. I was starting a new job. I did watch a few of these movies on the list. I watched Fingernails, that was on Apple TV. Good movie. If you I'm a big I like talky romance movies. That's one thing. I don't like Hallmark movies. I don't like cheesy romance movies, but I do like well-written romance movies, right? And Fingernails, very unique concept. In the near future or in an alternate reality, there is a love institute that can find your perfect, or it can tell you if your perfect match is the person you're with by taking off your fingernails. Extremely weird premise, right? When you think of it, but they take your fingernails off and they'll tell you if that person is your soulmate or not, right? Or your twin flame, which is a whole nother video. If you know anything about the twin flames on Netflix, boy, I could do like 20 videos on that. But we're not gonna do that now. But yes, the fingernail thing. Um, if you uh, put your fingernails in the machine, it'll tell you if that person is 100% match or a 50% match. So everybody based their dating off of this fingernail thing. Very interesting premise, but the machine is supposed to be 100% accurate, and you're never supposed to have 200% matches, right? And of course, that's what we get in the movie. Very good movie. Another great movie for November, The Holdovers. I just watched that 2 days ago. Paul Giamatti. I don't know the actress's name who plays the cook in this movie, but she was fantastic. She's up for a Golden Globe. The Holdovers is a great Christmas movie. Great movie in itself. A good character study about three flawed characters coming together. You know, in a very odd way. But it just was a good movie. The Marvels, not so great. I enjoyed the Marvels. A lot of people bash the Marvels. I'm not gonna dwell on my, you know, I'm not gonna get up on my Brie Larson soapbox, but I'll watch Brie Larson drink a glass of milk, and I will enjoy it. I love Brie Larson as an actress. I think she's great. Not exactly sure why everybody hates her, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed the Marvels more than a lot of people. It just wasn't a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. Which was what movie was close to a perfect movie was Dream Scenario. Dream Scenario was awesome. Dream Scenario was such a great movie. It's Nicolas Cage. I want you to just imagine this. Imagine you falling asleep at night and dreaming about Nicolas Cage as a middle-aged man who's balding and he's a college professor. That is the premise of Dream Scenario. And that movie takes that premise, runs with it, and takes it in different ways that I never would expected, which makes it a near perfect movie. Uh, the ending, a little bit divisive. I enjoyed the ending a lot. I enjoyed the entire movie. Nicolas Cage, career renaissance of a year. And yeah, even though Renfield wasn't great, he was actually great in Renfield. But he was fantastic in Dream Scenario. All right, and I didn't watch Napoleon. Once again, I'm not a big fan of historical epics. Not my thing, especially period pieces. Not too many black people there who weren't slaves, so not my cup of tea. But I did watch Wish, and Wish, I wish it was a better movie. I wish it was something that my kids remembered. They enjoyed it. They enjoyed the star. My son just loved the star. That was it. The songs were very forgettable. The animation wasn't, it was very muted. It didn't seem like what I found out, this is like Disney's 100th year. You should have made a better movie for to be like the crescendo, right? This was supposed to be Disney 100 years of making great movies. This was supposed to be a great movie to kind of elevate that, and it didn't. It kind of signified exactly where Disney is right now as a company, just kind of treading water, I guess. And this movie was an ultimate tread of water, very average, very minimal, just not a great movie at all. All right, and now we're gonna jump right into December, the last month. And if you've hung out with me this entire time, I appreciate it. We're gonna jump into the very last month of the year, and I'm really kicking myself for not seeing Godzilla minus one. Right, I've heard everybody has this movie in their top 10, top five, top movie of the year. I have to get on it. I've never been a fan of Godzilla. I've never like I enjoyed the remade movies. The Ken Watanabe movie, I think that was from 2014 or something like that. I enjoyed that movie, but I've never been a fan of the Japanese Godzilla movies. And apparently, this movie is amazing. I didn't go see Godzilla minus one. I don't even think it was playing here in El Paso. But I did go see Silent Night, which is my number two worst movie of the year. Silent Night, I saw the trailers and I was really intrigued because it's directed by John Woo. It stars Joel Kinnaman. And Silent Night is a completely silent movie. There are no words uttered in the movie other than some radio chatter from cops, and it is a terrible movie. Good, decent action, completely unbelievable story. I'll leave it at that. If you want to listen to my full review, definitely listen to the full review I gave on Silent Night. It is a terrible movie. Moving down, I did not watch Candy Cane Lane, although I wanted to. Um, didn't want to. Like I wanted to, but then I saw the trailer and then I didn't want to. Didn't look like a good movie. I did not watch Boy and the Heron. Not my cup of tea. Not my style of animation. But I did watch Leave the World Behind, and I wasn't the biggest fan of that movie. I did not do a review of the movie because I didn't want to just be overly negative on the movie. Um, it took a great concept and just put a bunch of bad characters around that concept. I didn't like see, God don't like ugly, right? I'm talking about things that I don't like, and I just had this coughing fit. But I didn't like any of the characters in the movie. They were all insufferable, from the kid all the way up to the parents. It just wanted to be irreverent. It wanted to be make a statement, but I don't know what that statement was. Like it wanted to be ambiguous, but at the same time, it wanted to make a political statement or a social statement, and it failed miserably on all of those fronts. And it's all because of not the cast, because I like all of the actors and actresses in the cast. It just was these characters were just terrible. Like Julia Roberts, I'm not a big, huge Julia Roberts fan, but I don't hate her. But I hated her character. Her character was terrible. And Mahershala Ali, I love Mahershala Ali, but I hated his character. His character was a terrible character, and that ruined the movie for me. I didn't get a chance to see Poor Things yet. That just started playing here, and it's not playing at the local AMC, meaning I'm not gonna go pay to go watch that movie. Same thing with American Fiction. That movie is not playing anywhere near me right now. Hopefully, that will change next week, so I can get a chance to check that out. Wonka, not a big Willy Wonka fan. I've heard great things about the movie, but I'm not a big, huge Willy Wonka fan, so I did not check out Wonka. Let's see, The Family Plan with Mark Wahlberg. It's on Apple Plus. If you have Apple Plus, you definitely want to watch this. It's a family road comedy, very funny movie. It's a typical Mark Wahlberg movie. Other than The Happening, which is a terrible Mark Wahlberg movie, this one is a typical good Mark Wahlberg movie. And we're gonna end this year off with the last three movies that I've seen. Let's see. We got Anyone But You, which is the best romantic comedy of 2023 in a year very low on good quality romantic comedies that hit the theater. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. That movie came and went. It was not that good of a movie. I stand by it as the most comic book movie that you're ever going to watch. But it just there was no value in the movie because we all know that that universe is crumbling. And then the Iron Claw, right? So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on Iron Claw. I cried watching the Iron Claw. Like it was such a strong movie. It was such a emotional movie about the Von Erichs. I'm a wrestling fan, but I'm not old enough to, you know, have been coherent enough to watch the Von Erichs when I was young and understand them as, wrestlers. I do remember the Texas Tornado in the WWE or WWF back in the days. I do remember him, Kerry Von Erich, big Kerry Von Erich fan. There was always that rumor that him and the Ultimate Warrior were brothers because they had the same long hair. They kind of looked alike. Um, but there was always that rumor that he only had one leg, right? Kind of spoiler, but yes, he only had one foot. Very unique, knowing that he wrestled in the WWE. He was the Intercontinental Champion and he only had one foot. Insane, right? But Zach Efron gave one of the greatest performances I think I've ever seen in a very muted role. Kind of reminds me of like Daniel Kaluuya in Nope, right? Like he's this very subdued character, but he's just such a great actor, emoting all of these emotions with doing very little with his face, right? Doing very little with his body, but you just felt it was a lot of it is his eyes, right? A lot of it came from his eyes, and it was just a great performance by Zach Efron. I enjoyed that movie a lot. It was a really, really good movie. Um, Unfortunately, because I'm under the weather, I have not had a chance to go see Color Purple, and I think that is why this live stream did not go the way I wanted it to go. I was supposed to have a co-host, and hopefully he's doing okay. Hopefully he's not under the weather like me. He's not here. So I'm doing this all alone. Nobody to really bounce off thoughts with. But yeah, I wanted to watch The Color Purple. I wanted to check that out prior to doing this live stream. But because of this head cold, I didn't want to go out and get anybody else sick or anything like that. So I just been kind of staying in the house, trying to take medicine. But as I was staying in the house, the last film that I did see of 2023 was Rebel Moon Part One: Child of Fire. Rebel Moon was not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. It was, I guess, the PG-13 cut of Zack Snyder's, huge cut. It just wasn't great put together movie. Apparently, there's like a 4 hour director's cut of part one. I don't think that I want to watch that movie because I feel like if you're gonna do that, just put that out initially, because this movie is gonna get fried so badly that a lot of people are not gonna want to watch the director's cut. It's not gonna be like Justice League, where everybody like the Justice League has so much stock in it already, where people wanted to see that. But I don't think that people want to see these characters that they did not fall in love with again. They might watch part two just to see how it ends, but I don't foresee a lot of people going in and watching Rebel Moon Part One, whether it's the director's cut or not. So yeah, that's my 2023 year in movies. So I'm just gonna jump into some of my biggest surprises of the year, and one of the biggest surprises, I have a list here. Biggest surprises with Gran Turismo. I did gush about that movie a lot. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. That was a really good movie that did not do well at the box office. Chris Pine is saying that they're going to make a part two, and hopefully this will turn this movie into a franchise. And hopefully the people will come out and check this movie out. Another big surprise, You Hurt My Feelings. I didn't talk about it earlier, but Julia Louis Dreyfus. It's not a romantic comedy. It's like a dramedy. It's a very, it's a very marriage centric movie. The premise of You Hurt My Feelings is this wife overhears her husband's true feelings of him. And this is every husband's worst nightmare is like don't not saying that we lie to our spouses, right? We never do that. We don't always tell, every bit of the truth, right? When that chicken is a little dry, babe, best food I've ever had, right? And that's the whole premise of this movie is she overhears him saying how bad she's a writer, and she hears him overhears him saying how bad her books are. And it just hilarity ensues from there, right? And like then she starts questioning everything in their marriage, and it's just a funny movie. You have to check this movie out. You Hurt My Feelings. I don't know exactly where that one is streaming. Uh, Totally Killer. That was on Amazon Prime. That was a very fun slasher movie that was just way better than it had any rights to be. A lot of people were saying it was, the exact same plot of Final Girls, which was also a great slasher movie, but this movie was just fantastic. It was phenomenal. I enjoyed Totally Killer a lot. That one is on Amazon Prime. If you haven't checked that out, definitely check that out. It's like Back to the Future meets Scream. And yeah, good movie. And then we'll move on to some of we won't go into the biggest disappointments. I think I've already hit those up enough. Um, but yeah, the favorite movies of the year. I have Barbie, They Clone Tyrone. John Wick Chapter 4, Across the Spider Verse, and Dream Scenarios, my top 5 movies of the year. 5 great movies. If you're gonna put 5 movies into a time capsule, a lot of people put Killers of the Flower Moon in there. They might put Oppenheimer in there. They might put Godzilla Year One in there or minus one in there. But those are the movies that I have in there. And I think I'm finally going to end up this live stream before I choke on my own uh, congestion. I really do appreciate everyone who stopped in. I appreciate everyone who watches. If you're going to watch this in the future, definitely leave a comment of your favorite movies, some of your biggest disappointments, some of your biggest surprises of 2023. I will be doing another live stream soon. I have to iron out the date on the upcoming movies, my most anticipated movies of 2024. I already have a lot of movies on my radar that I'm looking forward to in the year 2024. But I really, really do appreciate the fact that I got this first one out there. I appreciate everybody who stopped in. I really do. I really, really do appreciate it. Means a lot to me. And I'm happy if anyone got anything from this, if anyone might have heard a movie that they haven't seen and now going to go watch that and enjoy a movie that they wouldn't have known existed other than right now. But until next time, I will definitely catch y'all later. It is your boy T. Definitely like and subscribe to the Have You Seen That with T YouTube channel. Also, the Have You Seen That with T Facebook page. We out there, and I'm posting a lot more content there now, a lot more polls, trying to get people more engaged and just have a good time as a community. And I want to do some watch alongs next year as well. There are a lot of good movies coming out on streaming that will be fun doing a watch along to. Until next time, it is your boy T. I'm going to go take some more medicine and thank you for hanging in there with me and catch you next time.